In the last episode, we made an unplanned stop at Antietam National Battlefield, and what was supposed to be just a few minutes to stop and check out the visitor center turned into a couple of hours taking the Scamp around the self-guided driving tour that they have of the battlefield. But once we had checked everything out, we went back to the Scamp to have some lunch, and then we continued on our journey. We left Greenbrier State Park in Maryland that morning, and our destination for that night was Loft Mountain Campground in Shenandoah. This is one of the campgrounds that I haven't stayed at before. We went through some very interesting thunderstorms on the way, and then we headed up toward Skyline Drive. Now, a big part of the experience of visiting Shenandoah National Park is the drive. This is the famous Skyline Drive where you go up to the mountain ridge and then you just continue to drive along it and enjoy the views and the famous rest stops along the way. Be able to see anything at the overlooks. That's what happens, like the fog kind of sets in the mountain and then you can go to the overlooks, but you won't really see much. This was Patrick's first time in Shenandoah National Park. I've been here a few times, and the reason that we wanted to stay at Loft Mountain was because this is one of the campgrounds that I've never stayed at, and we heard it's really one of the nicest ones in Shenandoah, and I think I definitely agree with that opinion.
Well.
Yeah, it's a little weird that the door's facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
I guess I could have picked a site on the other side. I really didn't think about that, but it's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
I like this tree. Got a good tree. Set her up.
Yeah. A little trippy. Thunder?
Yeah, it's thunder. Since it was starting to get dark and there was a little bit of thunder in the distance, I decided to try to cook a full meal inside the Scamp. I hadn't done this yet. And this ended up being one of my favorite meals from this trip. I made this gourmet macaroni and cheese with some ground beef, peppers, and onions, and it was really good. For dessert, I had been saving these Stroop waffles for a special night. If you've never had these before, they're like these wafer cookies that have caramel inside of them. You make a hot drink and then you put them on top of your cup and it warms them up and melts the caramel inside. It's a very fun thing to do when you're camping. I think this was one of the first things I got for the trip. I was looking forward to it the whole time. I was so excited I found them. Loft Mountain is a very large campground, but there's no RV hookups because Shenandoah was built at a time when people really didn't RV. It was mostly just for tents. So we took a walk around the campground to check out some of the facilities, the bathroom. When you go down the hill, there are showers and a little general store down there, which was great last night. But since we didn't have any hookups, we decided that this would be a good day for us to kind of play with some of the things that we bought in preparation for this trip. Our ultimate goal is to be able to boondock pretty well with the Scamp, not to be stuck to having to go to RV parks and always have full hookups. So we got this suitcase solar panel, and we thought this would be a great day to work on figuring out how to set it up and how well it actually charges the batteries. It probably would have been good if we had tried out some of this stuff when we were still home, or if we did this on our very first trip when we didn't have hookups over Labor Day weekend. But since we got the Scamp kind of last minute for this trip, and then we had to order all of these things to become RV people, we did not have time to play around with this stuff at home. So we actually did take time to read the directions on this one, and once it was all set up, it really worked pretty well. We didn't have a ton of direct sunlight in the morning, but it was still able to charge our battery pretty quickly. So it is kind of a mess in here, mostly because of the dishes from making dinner last night and lunch. And when we got here, it was getting dark, so I didn't do any of that stuff last night. And we always say in the tiny house that since it's a small space, it gets dirty way faster, so I guess this is condensed even smaller than that. That's just from making breakfast and stuff this morning. But luckily they do have a camp sink here, so that'll make it easier. But I think today, since this is our first site that doesn't have any hookups, we're trying to kind of force ourselves to get comfortable with using some of the amenities of the trailer. So right now the fridge is on propane, which we had done before, which is helpful. Patrick's testing out the solar right now, and then we haven't really used the water system, so we were going to try to just flush that through and at least try to use the sink. As you can see, that would be helpful right now. So yeah, today's kind of testing out some of this stuff. Patrick used our collapsible 5-gallon container to put some water into our freshwater tank so that we could test some of the systems out.
Right there. If it's facing like this, that means it's open. It's going to empty it all out.
Oh, okay.
So I was going to say, I was like, let's only put like a couple gallons in there.
Test it.
Already overspilling, but I wanted that to happen so I could know how to empty it.
Okay. Once there was some water in our tank, then I went and tried to figure out how to use the sink and do some dishes inside. So it might seem strange to you that it's taken us this long to really use the sink, but we've been camping for a lot of years in a tent, and I'm so used to doing dishes outside or going to the camp sink at the campground to do stuff like this. We kind of just fell back into old habits. It's easy for me that way. So we kind of had to push ourselves to start to use the things that the trailer has. Okay, so I think I have restored order to the camper. Dishes done. It was really nice being able to use the sink, and this little extra folding table makes a great drying spot. But the camp host just stopped by and said that there was a juvenile bear in the area last night, and apparently when people are cooking outside, they're dropping food scraps into the fire ring thinking that it's going to get burned, and if there's any little scraps of food left in the fire ring, the bear was going from campsite to campsite picking things out of the fire ring. So now they have to trap the bear and relocate him. So it's a good lesson for campers. It might seem like an easy thing to drop little food scraps into the fire, but it really causes problems. You have to be much more careful because bears can smell every little thing. So don't put food in your fire. We had our breakfast and then we got ready to head down to the Loft Mountain wayside. We wanted to do some hiking in the first half of the day. Get some trail wine.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's a cute little store. Nice place to get lunch.
Cafe.
Yeah.
They have everything in that gift shop.
Like how this couple over here has like a full-blown
Setup.
picnic.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Alright, Frazier Discovery Trail.
Yeah.